Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing another Women in Translation You Should Be Reading video, specifically Japanese women in translation. So this is arguably my biggest category I have of women in translation from one country. I minored in Japanese literature, studied in Japan, then lived in Japan. So the chances that I ran into Japanese literature are much higher than probably any other translated literature. So I've read a lot, but these are just my absolute favorites, as I say in all of these videos. Please let me know if you have read some of these or give me recommendations. I want to hear about them. So as always, I'm going to do the ones that are on the top of my TBR that have me very intrigued, and then I'm going to talk about the ones that I highly recommend that you read. So first up are the three at the top of my TBR that I am very curious about. So first up, we have Terminal Boredom by Izumi Suzuki. I have never read her before. So this is a short story collection, and some of the themes in here involve a queer matriarchal utopia, two friends enjoying a holiday together on a resort planet, and it says that it's very similar to Margaret Atwood, Black Mirror, and Ex Machina. And all of those things tickle my damn fancy, so let me know if you've read them and what you thought, because I don't hear that many people talking about this collection, but this is definitely at the top of my Japanese women in translation I need to read immediately. Also, I have Snakes and Earrings by Hitomi Kanehara. I first saw this when we still lived in Japan, and I was hemming and hawing about getting it. I should have just got it in hindsight. Because the author herself dropped out of school and spent time on the streets in Japan, and she writes a lot about what the underbelly of Japanese street life is like, and I think that this novel is very divisive because I don't think a lot of people want to know the grittiness, but I read something very similar about gritty street life on Korean streets, called Call Me By Your Name, or no, I Hear Your Voice, very different books. I Hear Your Voice. And ever since then, I've been really intrigued to hear more stories about alternative lifestyles in Japan, Korea, areas where they project one image, and I'd like to know another. So I'm very intrigued by Snakes and Earrings. And then the other one that I'm intrigued by, but please let me know what you've heard, is Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. This is about two students who are being bullied at school, and they form a friendship. While I want to read Heaven, the reason I didn't read the previous book by this author, Breasts and Eggs, is because I heard that it has a transphobic passage in it, where I think the main character is trying to guess if someone was born a man or woman and what type of genitalia they have, and that's just super distasteful to me. So if you have read Breasts and Eggs, can you confirm, deny, let me know, and if you've read Heaven, let me know again if it would be worth it, but these are just the books that I have my eyes on. Okay, so let's get into my favorite Japanese women in translation, from my least most favorite to my most favorite. So first up, Kabi Nagata. So this is a illustrator and writer, and she wrote My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, and that is the first in the series, which I'm going to talk about. So it first came up on my radar because Kabi Nagata has the hair pulling disorder, which I have, trichotillomania. So I read it originally to see if it was good rep or not, and it is, because it's her own memoir, but more than just that, that's a very small element. She is struggling, still living at home with her family, not making any money as an artist, wanting to be an illustrator, but not sure what to illustrate about, and also this crushing sense of never being good enough for her family, but then also whenever she creates any sort of art, they kind of put her down or say you're shaming our family. So she's really dealing with a lot of loneliness, and she seeks out comfort in a female sex worker to get some touch from another human. So this does have queer rep. And I would say like the second is a continuation of the first. It's called My Solo Exchange Diary Volume 1. The themes are very similar. And I also gave it 4 stars. So they both get 4 stars. And then I saw that she has 2 others out, but I haven't read them. So there's My Solo Exchange Diary Volume 2. And then, unfortunately, I don't think things are going well for the author, because her 4th one is My Alcoholic Escape from Reality. So if you're looking for something that is very real and very like comforting / confronting of a memoir, this would be for you to check out. However, I will say that if you are in a sensitive situation, definitely check triggers before reading this series. All right. So then my next favorite is Natsuo Kirino, who wrote a bunch of things, and I have mixed thoughts. So first up, my most favorite was Out, which I read like 6-7 years ago now. I realized it's been a while when I recommended it to someone, and they were like, the beginning's a little slow, and I was like, is it? I can't remember. But what I do remember is that it follows a group of women who work in a bento factory, like making the bentos overnight, and each woman is dealing with a different thing in her life. When one woman kills her husband and the other women help her butcher the body and cover it up, and it's about them after that. And I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was excellent. It was like one of the book club picks we read in Korea when we lived there. So yeah, from what I remember, I gave it 4 stars and I really liked it, but apparently it's a little slow in the beginning, which I had forgotten. So sorry about that. Then, because I loved Out so much, I continued on reading and I was disappointed. So I read Real World, which I gave 3 stars. It's like a, it's called a feminist noir, and it's about 4 teenage girls in cram school and like dark elements, but I just remember being really bored. So I don't recommend that one. And The Goddess Chronicles, which I don't recommend even more. It's like feminist mythology about 2 sisters, but I just remember like really not liking it. And by the end I was like, meh, I guess, but I couldn't even tell like Kirino wrote it. It felt completely like separated from the world of Out. So again, don't recommend it. However, one that I have on my TBR is Penance, which is about 4 women who in their childhood something happened and one of them was found murdered. And then afterwards, the daughter's mother curses the surviving girls, vowing they will pay for her daughter's murder. So it says it's similar to Confessions, which we all know I didn't really like Confessions for many reasons. But I do like a good gory thriller where the like person who's getting revenge doesn't give any fucks. So Penance is definitely on my TBR. All right. Let's move on to my next favorite, which is Mariko Ohara, who wrote Hybrid Child. So this was a read I think I read at the beginning of August, is that right? Or the end of July, can't remember. But this is an epic sci-fi where you're following a war machine that when it samples something, it can take the form, whether it's a human or an animal or a machine. And basically at the beginning of the book, the sample B3 eats a dead girl, takes her body, and spends the rest of the book kind of mostly as that form. So going by Jonah and she, her, but using the pronouns of whatever form the body is in. However, there's also like deep space travel and going to another world known as the Aqua Planet that is controlled by this like failing motherly AI system. And one of the main characters there is known as Shedderer Mouse, who is a disabled man who lives in this like war machine coffin that can fly and fight and feeds his body, like keeps him alive basically. And I just thought that this was so fascinating. Like, it's very dense and it's very long. It spans like back and forth through 800 years, but if you like sci-fi and if you like really unique concepts, I would highly recommend this. I'm not a super dense sci-fi reader, so it took me a while, but man, do I not regret it. And some of the like ideas in here were so good. Like, yeah. So this is the only thing that is translated into English by Ohara so far that is like a novel, but I am very keen to see if she comes out with anything else, because her imagination is just like absolutely top tier, and this had a very solid ending. And I ended up giving this 3.5 stars, but it could easily be a 4. Alright, so after that we have Sayaka Murata. You might know because she's become very popular in like booktube. So my favorite by her was Earthlings, which is not for everyone. It is so very dark. And we're following a girl who believes that she is not a human, but that she is an alien that has been left on Earth. And through a series of circumstances, she is kind of shunned from her family, and we follow her many years down the road where she is struggling to fit into society, but she's being very othered. And more people come into her life. She has a husband who is asexual, doesn't really fit in either. And then I believe it's her cousin who something happened in the past between them, and it has driven like a wedge. And just things are so dark. There's so much to talk about and discuss in here, but also it has like every trigger warning possible. So definitely, if you are going to read this, check trigger warnings, because it has all of them, every trigger warning. But I definitely would say that it has stuck with me, and that's why it's my favorite of hers. I also read Convenience Store Woman, which I think is her most popular. It's probably the most palatable to a wide audience, although they have similar themes of not fitting into society. Only in Convenience Store Woman, the main character is a woman who's getting older, like 30s, 40s, and she has always worked at a convenience store, and she finds it very fulfilling, and she loves working there. However, everyone else is like, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? So then she thinks like she needs to quit her job and find and do what other people want her to do. And it's kind of her struggle with, do I do what other people want me to do, or do I do what makes me happy? So they're kind of taking on the same topics, but Convenience Store Woman, I would say, is like the lighter version, and then Earthlings is just like the ultra dark, such dark version. So both of those I gave Earthlings 4 and Convenience Store Woman 3. And then on my TBR, actually, I found that Sayaka Murata has another one that came out in 2015, and it's called A Clean Marriage, but it says frequency of sex since marriage, 0. Sayaka Murata talks about sexless marriage and the clean breeder technique for pleasureless reproduction. So I don't really know what that means, but I'm intrigued, because taking out sexuality from a relationship is another element that was in both Convenience Store Woman and Earthlings. So I think it's an element that Murata is also interested in, and I'd like to see what her earlier work says about it, because that might influence how I think about like her later books. Alright, so then we're to my second favorite author, which is a recent read that I finished like yesterday. So this is Mizuki Tsujimura, who wrote Lonely Castle in the Mirror, and it's the only thing translated by her right now, which is super sad, because I gave this 4.5 stars. I really liked this. So this is following a group of 6 students who are actually not attending school, and they stay at home instead, for various reasons. Some are being bullied, some are having trouble with their studies, some are doing things outside of school that prohibit them from attending, some have family issues, and one day in all of their rooms, their mirrors start glowing, and they have the ability to touch the mirrors and fall through them like Alice in Wonderland, and they're suddenly in a castle. And there's a wolf queen there who looks like this, and she tells them they have a year to find the key in the castle, and if they do, one of them can be granted a wish. However, instead of like hunting the key, they go there to find like solace together and to be really like finding their own way, because a lot of them like have trouble fitting in. They always have their guard up because everyone is always telling them like, why don't you go to school? Why are you such a loser? Why don't you fit in? And finally they're with a group of other people who like understand exactly what they're feeling. And as you're following these characters over the 350 pages, you see how each of them is kind of coming to terms with what they're dealing with and are helping one another. And I, towards the end of the book, was getting very emotional, and then the last 30 pages I sobbed my eyes right out of my head. So I just thought that this was amazing. I gave it 4.5 stars. I highly recommend it. And yeah, this is one of my favorite Japanese books by women that I've read recently, and I thought it was so excellent. Highly recommend. Pick it up if you can. Okay, and we are to my favorite Japanese writer. And honestly, this was a tie with Tsujimura, because I gave this 4.5, but there's only one book, whereas Yoko Ogawa has many books, and I've given a range of ratings. So first up is the short story collection, The Diving Pool. This I gave 5 stars when I read it. I thought it was absolutely most excellent. It is super creepy. One story involves, I think, siblings, and one of them has like malicious intentions. And it's so short, I don't want to spoil anything, but Diving Pool I gave 5 stars. I really loved it. I also read Hotel Iris, which is a book about like a seaside hotel. A young girl there becomes fascinated with a man who her mother kicks out of the hotel, and like a kind of a dark relationship ensues. I gave that 4 stars. Then Housekeeper and the Professor, which is arguably the sweetest one of Ogawa's so far, dealing with a professor who has short-term memory loss, a math professor, and his nanny slash caretaker, housekeeper, obviously, who has formed a friendship with him, but he can only remember in his own unique way. This one was heartbreaking, and I gave it 4 stars as well. Then there's Revenge, which is a series of odd, bizarre, more than dark short stories. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was pretty good, but not as good as her other works. And then last up is The Memory Police, which was her most recent release, and the one that I was like most excited for, but unfortunately I DNF'd it and I hated it. So as you can see, I put Yoko Ogawa first because I have like a 5, a 4, a 4, 3.5, and then a DNF. She just has such a wide writing style, books and short stories, and like surrealism versus realism, just very good, but dark. So, you know, yeah. And I'm gonna stop it here because the sun has completely set. I've been using like the light from my laptop to finish this video. The sun set way faster than I thought it would. So I'm sorry that the quality isn't that good, but it is what it is. And I will see you in another video soon. Please tell me any Japanese translations you have to recommend me. And yeah, sending you lots of love. I'll see you soon. Bye!